Don't look at me. She did not say it like a plea. It was not fear or shyness, it was resignation. As if she had long accepted that the sight of her scars and all was not something meant for anyone to witness. Dominic Vale had heard many women say many things. Screaming fans, ruthless board members, gold-digging influencers. But never that. Never a woman who looked at him with eyes that held no expectation, no seduction, no agenda. Just quiet, sharp pain. He should have turned away, but he didn't. Standing at the edge of the massive patio that overlooked the Colorado cliffs, he found himself frozen. The outdoor tub was tucked in the farthest corner of the property, designed for privacy. He had not expected anyone to be there, certainly not her, certainly not the maid. She was half submerged in the steaming water, back arched slightly, unaware at first, her skin kissed by sun, and work shimmered with soap and moonlight. But it was not her body that caught him. It was the patchwork of scars across her back, faded, uneven, cruel. She was someone who had endured, and she was humming, a lullaby, foreign, off-key, sad. It rattled something in him. Dominic Vale, billionaire tech mogul, former CEO of Vale Dynamics, the man once declared America's most eligible bachelor on the cover of Forbes, had not felt anything in years. Not since the fall, not since the betrayal, not since he stopped believing that women were anything more than performance wrapped in perfume. Until now. She turned her head slightly, eyes catching his in the reflection of the glass door. No gasp, no scream, just that same quiet voice. "Don't look at me." He blinked. "I didn't mean to," he began, but the words felt strange in his throat. "It's fine," she said. Her tone made it clear she meant the opposite. She reached for a towel without rushing, wrapping herself with practiced efficiency movements clinical. She didn't cower. She didn't flirt. She didn't even ask why he was home 3 days early. She just gathered her clothes. He could have left, should have, but instead he asked the question he hadn't asked anyone in over a year. "What's your name?" She paused, fingers tightening around the edge of the towel. Ariel, Ariel, like the sea, but nothing about her felt soft. She was stone and silence and survival. "I'm Dominic," he said pointlessly. Of course she knew, everyone knew. She gave a single nod, not awe, not interest, just acknowledgement, like naming a weather pattern. "Your flight was supposed to land Friday," she said. "I came to clean up before the next storm rolls in." His voice was quiet. "You live here?" She shook her head. "I sleep in the guest house when assigned. Most of the time I'm invisible. Don't worry, I'll be out by morning." Dominic watched her walk past him, barefoot, chin up, like she carried more than just her towel. She carried history. The kind you did not ask about. He stared after her long after she vanished into the hallway. The steam still curled into the cold mountain air. The scent of lavender lingered. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel hollow. He felt curious. And curiosity for a man who had built an empire on cold calculation was the most dangerous feeling of all. Ariel Reyes moved like someone who had learned long ago not to take up space. She cleaned with quiet efficiency, her hands swift and methodical, her presence barely noticeable even inside the echoing expanse of Dominic Vale's mountain estate. The house itself was perched high above Aspen, a fortress of glass and stone that overlooked endless forests and jagged ridges, built for silence, designed for isolation, just like the man who owned it. Dominic Vale had retreated here after losing everything that mattered to him in the public eye. A tech scandal, A false accusation, a media circus. Headlines had once praised his genius, his ruthless brilliance, his Midas touch in Silicon Valley. But when the woman he had loved accused him of manipulation and misconduct, the world turned its back. The company ousted him. Investors pulled out. The media devoured him. Even after the truth emerged that the accusations were false, strategically planted. To ruin him, his name never fully recovered. Trust once broken was a currency no amount of money could buy back. So he bought silence instead. Land, privacy. He disappeared into the mountains where the only voices were those he could ignore. Until Ariel. She wasn't supposed to matter. She was just a cleaning service staffer assigned by the estate manager. Young, quiet, efficient. She didn't wear makeup, didn't smile unless spoken to, never lingered, never asked questions. She arrived on Tuesdays and Fridays, cleaned the guest houses. The kitchen, the gym, then left. She rarely spoke to him, and when she did, it was only about work, which suited Dominic perfectly. What he didn't know was that Ariel had once been on the other side of ambition. She had started nursing school in Phoenix full of hope, carrying the weight of her family's expectations. But when her mother remarried a man who promised stability and delivered only bruises, Ariel dropped out to protect her younger sister. Working nights at a hotel and days cleaning houses, she became the only steady income in a collapsing household. Then her mother left, just packed a bag and vanished one day, leaving Ariel with an 8-year-old sister and no legal guardianship. That was 2 years ago. Since then, she had done everything from waitressing to caregiving to cleaning toilets in vacation mansions owned by people like Dominic Vale. People she never expected to notice her, until he did. It started with small things. A fresh towel left folded beside the sink after her bath. A note in precise handwriting, "The tub is yours on Wednesdays." No staff scheduled those evenings. Then coffee. 2 mugs on the patio table, still steaming though no one sat beside her. And then questions. One afternoon, he asked where she had learned to hum the song they overheard in the garden. She told him it was a lullaby her grandmother used to sing when she was still in Mexico, long before Arizona, before the violence, before she stopped singing altogether. Dominic didn't reply, but the next day she found a playlist on the house sound system titled Ariel's Song. Spanish guitar, soft, aching melodies. She never said thank you, but she started humming more often. The staff noticed first. The security chief mentioned that Dominic seemed less tense on the days Ariel was around. The estate manager reported that the cameras showed him lingering near the greenhouse while she cleaned it. The gardener joked that the Ice King was melting. Ariel ignored all of it. She told herself she was just doing her job, just grateful for the space, the warmth, the freedom to exist without being cornered or touched. But it was hard to ignore the way Dominic watched her, not with desire, not with hunger, but with something stranger, curiosity, recognition, and something almost like guilt. She didn't ask why he was interested, didn't ask what it meant when he offered her full-time residency, claiming the weather was too unstable for her to commute. She simply accepted the keys and continued working, pretending that none of it mattered. But the house was changing, and so was she, and so quietly was he. It was a Wednesday evening when everything began to shift. Ariel had finished scrubbing the kitchen tiles and was walking past the edge of the indoor pool when she saw him sitting alone by the water, barefoot sleeves rolled a glass of something amber in his hand. He didn't look at her at first, just swirled the liquid in slow circles, as if it held answers he could not name. She tried to pass by quietly, but his voice stopped her. "Do you swim?" She hesitated. "Not here." He turned, then looking at her fully. "Do you want to?" There was no invitation in his tone, no seduction, just a question. She blinked. "The pool is yours." "So is the house," he replied. "But I haven't felt welcome in it for a long time." She didn't respond, unsure what to do with his honesty. She stayed quiet. That night she found a folded towel and a black one-piece suit, her size exactly laid out neatly by the poolside bench. She didn't touch it, but she stared at it for a long time. The next night it was still there, clean, waiting. On the third night she swam, not for him, for herself. The water was warm, quiet. When she surfaced after a dive, she saw him watching from the upper railing, silent. She said nothing, just drifted to the edge, heart pounding harder than it should have. After that, something subtle began to bloom between them. Not a relationship, not yet, but something with weight and shape and gravity. She noticed he began timing his movements to match hers entering the kitchen. 5 minutes after she finished working on the terrace, while she cleaned the greenhouse, they never spoke of it. But proximity became comfort. One afternoon, she walked into the library and found him kneeling by a low shelf, arms full of hardcovers. He looked up surprised. "Didn't expect you here today?" The dusting schedule changed. He stood. "Do you read?" She hesitated, then nodded. "A lot, mostly borrowed books." He studied her, then gestured to the wall of shelves. "Take anything you want." She stared at him. "You don't even know what I like." "No," he agreed, "but I'd like to." She didn't take a book that day. But 2 days later, she left with 3. That weekend, he asked her which was her favorite. She told him. The next morning, the entire series was delivered to her guest house. That was the thing about Dominic. He never pushed, never touched, never crossed a line. But he noticed everything, like the way she always turned her body away from the mirror when passing by, or how she flinched slightly at sudden footsteps, or how she always carried her phone, even to the laundry room, as if expecting bad news. He never asked. But one night when a storm knocked out the power and she lit a candle in the hall, she heard his voice through the open door. "Did someone hurt you?" She froze. "Why does it matter?" "Because I want to hurt them back." She didn't answer. The silence stretched too long. Then softly she said, "You already do enough, just by seeing me." He did not understand what she meant until later, until he realized that to be seen without being judged was rarer than touch, more intimate than sex, and far more dangerous. One evening she found him outside on the stone steps, arms crossed, staring at the stars. She sat beside him without asking. "I used to think the sky was smaller," she murmured. "From the city, you forget how much space exists above you." He didn't look at her. "You get used to ceilings, even if they're made of glass, especially then." They sat in silence. After a while, he spoke again. "I was engaged once. She was beautiful, smart, said all the right things, and lied about all the rest." Ariel waited. "She said I ruined her, that I used her, told the world I was a monster. And for a while I believed it, even after the truth came out. Why? Because when everyone turns on you, even lies start to sound true." She looked at him, not with sympathy, but understanding. "And now I'm just waiting for someone to tell me I'm not what she said." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe you need to listen to someone who sees who you are, not who they say you were. Dominic turned to her, really turned, and for a long moment, they just sat the wind, soft around them, two people with more silence than words. The first time he touched her was days later, a light brush of fingertips against her hand as she handed him a cup of coffee. She didn't pull away. The next time she leaned into it. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was something, a promise, an ache. They never labeled it, never spoke of whatever it was becoming, but it was there, in the way he brought her tea on rainy mornings, in the way she repaired his coat without telling him, in the book quotes he left scribbled on notes, in the warm bowls of soup she made when he worked late, in the stillness they shared like two ghosts slowly remembering what it meant to live. She laughed one morning genuinely over a clumsy joke he made. He stared at her like it was the sun rising for the first time. What she asked, nothing, he said. I just forgot what that sounded like. She tilted her head, laughter yours, a pause, mine. It was not a love story, not yet, but it was a beginning. And beginnings, when born from pain, always come wrapped in something fragile, something holy, something real. The first time Ariel told him the truth, it was not planned. It came out like breath during a cold night, visible and uncontrollable. They were sitting on the back deck, watching snow fall under the pale orange glow of the porch light. Dominic had just handed her a wool blanket and asked if she was cold. She shook her head, and then without looking at him, she said, My mother left when I was 21. I came home from my shift at the diner and found the house empty. No note, no explanation, just a suitcase gone and my little sister asleep in the closet because she was scared of our stepfather. Dominic did not interrupt. Ariel continued, her voice calm, like it was someone else's story. He used to come into our room at night. My mother knew. She told me to keep quiet so we wouldn't lose the roof over our heads. When she left, she didn't take my sister, just her shoes, her makeup bag, and the $500 I had hidden in the cookie tin. Dominic's fingers tightened on the railing, but he still said nothing. I dropped out of school, took 3 jobs, applied for guardianship, got denied because I didn't have steady income. So I lied, said our mother was coming back. Nobody checked. They never check. She looked at him then. Her eyes were not asking for pity, just space to be believed. I've spent the last 5 years pretending to be older, stronger, better than I am, just so my sister doesn't end up like me. Dominic's throat felt dry. He wanted to say something, but nothing seemed worthy. So he reached out and placed his hand gently over hers. She didn't flinch. Later that night, when they were inside by the fireplace, he told her his truth. About the scandal, about the headlines that painted him as manipulative, controlling, emotionally abusive. About the silence of his board, the betrayal of his closest friend, and the long stretch of isolation that followed. They said I was a predator, that I used power to get what I wanted, that I gaslit her into submission. None of it was true. Did anyone defend you? She asked quietly. My lawyers, my publicist, people paid to care, no one else. Ariel didn't ask why. She didn't need to. And now he said, I hide in the mountains and let the world forget me. She shook her head. You don't want to be forgotten. You want to be seen, without masks. He looked at her, startled by how close she had come to the center of him. She didn't press further. Instead, she rose and went to the bookshelf, pulling down a novel. She placed it in his hands. Read this. It's about a man who disappears and thinks no one will notice, but someone does. And that changes everything. He took the book and watched her walk away. That night he read all 200 pages before dawn. The next day she found a note under her coffee cup. Just one line. "Thank you for noticing." Their connection deepened, not through grand gestures, but in the quiet. In the meals they cooked together, in the shared chores, in the way she began to leave little notes on his desk, song lyrics, quotes, sketches. One afternoon, she left a photo. It was of a young girl 10 years old, smiling wide front tooth, missing in a Halloween costume made of cardboard and glitter. "My sister," she said when he asked. "I made the costume out of cereal boxes. She wanted to be a shooting star." He smiled. "She looks like you. She's better than me." "I doubt that." "You shouldn't." He learned her favorite color was teal, that she hated cilantro, that she once dreamed of becoming a pediatric nurse, that she still watched cartoons to fall asleep when the silence got too loud. She learned that he once wrote poetry in college under a fake name, that he couldn't ride a bicycle, that he was afraid of dogs but didn't want anyone to know, that he listened to jazz because it reminded him of his mother's old record player. They were building something, not defined, not labeled, but real. One evening as they folded laundry together, she said softly, "Do you ever wonder what people would see if they stopped looking at what we've done and started looking at why Dominic paused? All the time. Then maybe we're not so different. I never thought we were." He looked at her then, and the moment stretched long. The space between them dissolved. He stepped forward, and for the first time he reached for her, not with hesitation, but with certainty. She leaned into the kiss like it was something she had always known would come, but never thought she'd deserve. It was soft, patient, warm. Nothing like the broken things they had both survived. Afterward, they stood in silence, foreheads resting against each other. He whispered, "You don't have to fix me. I'm not trying to." "Then why stay?" She met his gaze. "Because you see me, and I want to learn how to see myself the way you do." From that night on, things changed. He smiled more. She sang while folding sheets. They cooked breakfast together on Sundays. She taught him how to make real tortillas. He taught her how to code simple lines in Python just for fun. The house felt different, lighter, warmer, alive. But outside the estate, the world was still spinning. And neither of them knew that everything they were building was about to be tested. Because truth, when left buried, does not disappear. It waits, and when it returns, it demands to be reckoned with. The email came at midnight. Dominic was sitting in his study, half reading one of the books Ariel had left on his desk, when his phone lit up with a notification from a journalist he hadn't spoken to in over a year. The subject line was simple. She confessed. His pulse slowed, then spiked. He clicked it open. Attached was a link to a leaked audio recording from an unaired podcast episode where his ex-fiancée, the woman whose accusations had shattered his name, admitted she had fabricated parts of her story. She had been under pressure financially and emotionally, she claimed. Her agent had encouraged her to dramatize things. It had spun out of control. Dominic sat still for a long time. He didn't feel triumph, not exactly. Just a strange, heavy silence in his chest. The truth had finally surfaced, but the damage had already been done. The next day the media pounced. Headlines shifted. Veil Vindicated was trending. Former board members called. Investors wanted meetings. Public relations firms offered comeback strategies. Everyone wanted a piece of the redemption arc. Dominic ignored them all. Instead, he walked into the kitchen where Ariel was slicing strawberries for breakfast. She looked up and instantly sensed the change in the air. What happened? He handed her the phone with the headline pulled up. She read it quietly, then looked at him. So now what? He didn't answer, just leaned on the counter and watched her. They want me back, he said finally. All of them. The ones who ghosted me, the companies, the networks. She nodded slowly. Are you going? Do you want me to? She set the knife down. This is your life, Dominic. I don't want to be the reason you miss it. He stepped closer. You're not the reason. You're the only part of it that feels real. She smiled faintly but said nothing. That night he sat outside alone, replaying conversations, contracts, and offers. He knew what he could gain if he returned. Power, influence, applause. But as the cold air wrapped around him, he realized something startling. He no longer wanted the world. He wanted her. The next morning she was gone. Her room was empty. The few books and clothes she kept in the guest house had vanished. On the kitchen table sat a folded note. He opened it with shaking fingers. Dominic, I don't belong in your world. Not now. Maybe not ever. You gave me more than I ever thought I'd have a home safety kindness. But the more the world remembers you, the more I disappear. You're not the man they said you were, but I can't be the shadow beside you. I need to become someone whole, not someone hidden. I'm going back to school. I'm going to try again. Thank you for reminding me I could. Ariel. He read the letter 3 times before the words sank in. She had left, quietly, completely, like the ghost she had once called herself. For hours he sat in the sunroom where she used to hum while folding laundry, the silence now too loud. He didn't eat, didn't call anyone. By nightfall he made his decision. The next morning he turned down every offer, every interview, every rebranding campaign. He called his lawyer and signed over the majority of his shares in Veil Dynamics to a new nonprofit foundation focused on mental health and trauma support. He named it Reyes Foundation. Then he packed a bag and left Colorado. It took him 3 days to find her, not because she was hiding, but because she was finally living. He spotted her through the window of a small community college in Denver, sitting in a classroom with a textbook open and a highlighter in hand. She looked peaceful, determined, whole. He waited until class ended, then stood beside her car. She stopped in her tracks when she saw him. Dominic, she said, cautious. You left, he said, voice steady. You were supposed to go back to your company. I did something better. What I came here. She shook her head. Why? Because the only time I ever felt like I had a future was with you. You don't need me. You've been cleared. You can go back to your world. I don't want that world. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. This is for you. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were enrollment forms for a nursing program, fully paid along with letters of recommendation from 2 nonprofit directors and a scholarship under her name. You did this, she whispered. I just made a few calls. The rest is yours to take. Her eyes filled, but she blinked it back. Why would you do this? Because you told me once you felt small, invisible, like you didn't deserve to be seen. But you deserve everything, Ariel. A life, a name, a purpose. I'm not here to take you back. I'm here to tell you that whatever you choose, I'll support it, even if it doesn't include me. She stepped closer. That's love, isn't it? Wanting something and letting it go. No, he said. That's fear. Love is wanting something and standing beside it, without conditions. She looked down at the folder, then back at him. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, he said, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Silence stretched. Then she asked, Where are you staying tonight? He hesitated. Nowhere yet. Then maybe you should come inside. It's cold, he smiled. Only if there's tea. Only if you're making it. They walked together toward the small student housing building, side by side, not touching but closer than ever. She didn't promise forever. He didn't ask, but something had shifted again. This time, not in silence or darkness, but in light. They were not healed, not fixed, but they were no longer alone. And sometimes that was enough. 3 months passed. Ariel balanced nursing classes, part-time work, at a small clinic, and late-night study sessions, under the dim yellow lamp in her modest apartment. She hadn't expected Dominic to stay, but he did. Quietly, steadily, without demand. He rented an apartment 2 blocks away from campus, not in the luxurious high-rises he once called home, but in a weathered red brick building with squeaky stairs and chipped paint on the window frames. Every morning, he walked her to class with a thermos of coffee and a quiet joke. Every evening they sat on the back steps of her building and shared silence like an old familiar language. She never asked why he was still there. He never asked her to define what they were. They were just together. But life had a way of testing even the gentlest truths. It started with a letter, a legal notice. The Reyes Foundation, the nonprofit he had created in her name, was under review. His former board members were calling it a PR stunt, accusing him of manipulating public opinion for financial gain. They wanted to reclaim control over the assets he had given away. They think I'm hiding behind you, he said one night, standing in her doorway with the letter in his hand. They want me to prove this was real. What does that mean? She asked. It means I have to testify, go public, talk about everything, you, me, what happened. Her shoulders stiffened. I don't want the world to look at me. I know, he said gently, but if I don't do this, they'll take it all. The programs, the clinics, the scholarships, everything we built. She sat down on the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. If they see me, they'll ask questions about my past, my scars, what I survived. Then let them, he said. You survived. You are here. That's your power, not your shame. It doesn't feel like power. It will, when you speak. She looked at him, her eyes searching for something stable, something unmoving. And what if I can't? Then I'll speak for both of us. The hearing was scheduled 2 weeks later. Media outlets caught wind of the story. Headlines resurfaced. Disgraced tech billionaire launches redemption charity. Some sneered. Others speculated about his relationship with the mysterious woman behind the foundation's name. Paparazzi appeared outside the school. Ariel skipped classes for a week, afraid of being seen, afraid of being labeled again. We can walk away, Dominic said one night, holding her hand. Let them have it, start over somewhere else. She shook her head slowly. No, they took everything from you once. I won't let them do it again. And I won't keep hiding. She agreed to stand beside him in the hearing, not as a symbol, not as an excuse, as a partner. The courtroom was filled with reporters and photographers. Dominic wore a dark suit, crisp and unassuming. Ariel wore a soft gray dress, long sleeves covering her arms, her hair pulled back in a low braid. When asked why he had named the foundation after her, Dominic didn't hesitate. because she reminded me what truth looks like, what strength looks like. And because everything I do now is shaped by what she taught me about dignity, about resilience, about love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. When the board's lawyer pressed Ariel about her past, she answered without flinching. Yes, I was abused. Yes, I was poor. Yes, I was invisible for a long time. But I am not anymore. Not because someone saved me, because someone saw me and reminded me that I could save myself. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble. When the hearing ended, the room was silent. The board withdrew their challenge 2 days later. The foundation remained hers, not in name, in purpose, in proof. On the evening after the verdict, Dominic found her sitting on the rooftop of their building, knees pulled to her chest, head tilted to the sky. I didn't expect to feel this, she said. What do you feel? Strong, tired, real, like I don't have to hide anymore. He sat beside her. You never had to, but I'm glad the world knows now what I always did. They're still watching. Let them. You shine brighter than their cameras. She laughed softly. You always say the right thing, only because it's true. She turned to face him, her eyes serious. I never told you this, not out loud, but I love you. He blinked once slowly. I know how, because I've felt it every day. In your silence, in your anger, in your strength, in how you stayed. I was scared, so was I. She reached for his hand, but I'm not anymore. Me neither. He kissed her then, not like the first time. This kiss was deep-rooted, full of the weight they had carried and the light they had chosen to chase. It was not a beginning. It was a knowing, a vow, a truth, and somewhere below them the city breathed. Cameras shut down. Headlines faded, but 2 hearts stayed steady. Finally free. The spring came quietly, not with fireworks or grand declarations, but with soft mornings, slow sunrises, and the kind of peace neither of them had ever dared to believe they would have. Ariel graduated with distinction from the nursing program, wearing a white coat that still smelled like fresh starch and new beginnings. Dominic sat in the back of the auditorium, not because he was hiding, but because he wanted her to be the center of the day. After the ceremony, she found him waiting under a tree with a bouquet of sunflowers, the same kind she once said reminded her of her grandmother's garden. She laughed when she saw them and cried when he handed her a small box, inside of which sat not a diamond, but a simple silver ring, etched with the word enough. Because you always were, he said. They didn't marry in a cathedral or on a yacht. They married in the courtyard of the first clinic, the Reyes Foundation, opened surrounded by staff and children and neighbors who had become family. Ariel wore a soft cream dress that fluttered in the breeze, and Dominic wore the same dark suit. From the hearing, the one she once told him made him look like someone who could be trusted. The vows were simple. No poetry, no rehearsed lines, just promises spoken through smiles and tears. I see you, she said, even when the world doesn't. And I choose you, he said, even when it would be easier not to. Afterward, they danced beneath string lights and laughed until the night dissolved into quiet warmth. No photographers, no press, just people who had witnessed their journey from fracture to wholeness. In the years that followed, they built a life not measured by headlines or bank accounts, but by the small things. Breakfasts cooked together, walks in the park with her sister, letters of thanks from patients at the clinics, books read side by side on lazy Sundays. The word enough became their private mantra, a reminder that they didn't need to be perfect or perform for anyone. They just needed to show up. Love for them was not about grandiosity. It was about showing up again and again, even on hard days, even when healing felt slow. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sun dip below the Denver skyline, Ariel leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "I never thought my life could be this quiet." Dominic kissed her temple. "Quiet is where we hear truth best." She smiled. "Do you still think about the day we met? Every time I close my eyes." "I was so scared," she said. "So was I. But you stayed. You gave me a reason to." They didn't say more that night. They didn't need to. Some stories are not about rescue. They are about recognition, about the rare and sacred miracle of being seen in a world that so often turns away. Ariel Reyes was no longer the maid who bathed in borrowed silence. Dominic Vale was no longer the billionaire who hated women and trusted no one. Together they became proof that healing is not found in wealth or headlines, but in presence, in stillness, in choosing love even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Love is not about looking away. It's about looking deeper and choosing to stay.